This channel is kind of dedicated to all sorts of role-playing. Yes, we do a lot of vampires, and yes, we are talking about vampires today, but something that I've not explored in comparison to exploring like tabletop role-playing a lot, play by post is something that I have wanted to do for years, and specifically not just playing it and existing in someone's forum. I wanted to run one, and it hasn't been until very recently that I have been able to dedicate some time to making my own play-by-post Vampire the Masquerade game and running it for Pod by Night, which I am so excited to show you today. I made an entire game. I homebrewed a whole bunch of stuff, and I think it's fun and different because not only is it integrated into the kind of metaverse, I hate that word, it's the universe of Pod by Night and the podcast that we do, which is linked to the story. So it's got some story like link-ins there, but it's also got a rules heavy faction structure to kind of pin it all together, give players some cool stuff to like invent things around, so you don't have to just kind of come up with what's happening off the top of your head. No, all of that is built off of this base of rules and turns that I've used. So if anyone else has ever played the game Blades in the Dark, then this will seem extremely familiar to you, because I have basically stolen their game and like extremely heavily homebrewed it to kind of support this structure. But first, what is the story and where does it link into this game that I've built? Well, very excitingly, we're using Gary, Indiana, which is very close to Chicago, and as you may know, Vampire the Masquerade has a ton of lore about what's going on or has gone on in those cities, like linked to the, you know, some real life troubles that have occurred, like the disasters and like economic problems, especially for Gary. And so they're really interesting places to set stories in, and, you know, perfect for like manipulative underworld vampires to really sink their claws in and do horrible things. And Gary is the setting that we're using, and we're obviously using the most up-to-date version of that, in which and Mathis Games has started writing some backstory for this game as well that we'll link into the podcast. But anyway, the stuff that I've been working on: Gary, Indiana, the Baron and the Prince, the Anarch leader and the Camarilla leader are both missing, gone, and no one knows where they are, what's going on. Obviously those factions have kind of collapsed, and I got to invent brand new factions. Are they Camarilla aligned? Are they Anarch aligned? That is for the players who are in those factions to decide, which means that when you join, you get to, hang on, pick a faction. I have invented 6 factions, and they all have strengths and weaknesses. Some are more social, some are more like punchy, but they all exist within Gary, have their own turf that they want to protect and is their seat of power. And we've had quite a few players now pick each one of them for different reasons, and from there they've just kind of run with it and invented their own parts and little bits of story, character, and background to all of these factions. Without the players, and this is kind of one of my driving inspirations, is without players, this game is nothing. Which is obviously true of most role-playing games, but specifically what I wanted that to mean for this was that players had space, but also inspiration and prompts to go out and just take something they thought was cool and run with it. And I can give you a couple of examples. So the Silk Gauntlet, I kind of used the Ventrue clan and I mixed them with the crew, the Hawkers. They are vice dealers, and we really lent into the broker kind of thing. And from there, one of the players has invented a Malkavian who uses a golden pen to foresee opportune business and spend money and try and make friends. And very similarly for all of these, for example, Corpsemongers, I wanted to draw on the inspiration for the Nosferatu, but also make them cannibals. Same for the Lucid, were mainly inspired by Malkavians, but there are a whole bunch of different characters in this group now, and they've got their own little kind of sub-forum crew who are all moderators and all like to shoot things a lot and be weird and also stream on Twitch. So I really wanted to give people lots of space to create their own thing inside of the structure that I was building. I'm actually really happy with how that's gone. We are 3 turns in now, and I've been tweaking these rules as we go, and I am so impressed with everyone's role playing and everyone's like willingness to just kind of go with the flow and let dramatic things happen to their characters. This story that I've written, they've really gone for, and the story as it progresses, obviously we've got some backgrounds that Mathis is contributing to and I'm building out, but also the story is a progression of current events that happen once per month. We were just talking about it, that's the turn structure. Once per month I do a stream, and each faction gets to decide what they want to do. I think the best way to describe this stream is on this map here. This is Gary, Indiana. You see Chicago up here. You see all of the different places that I have invented and people have taken over with the different colors and symbols. This is after 3 turns. Each faction is either just grabbed their first extra bit of turf. So right down here, the Magi of the Dark Mother have gone from the university and grabbed the LARP field. So now they have a bunch of nerds to roleplay with. Much like the Young Bravos, who have gone from the dive and taken over a haunted house and made it their rave spot. People like the Alphas and the Corpsemongers have not moved as fast because they've been focused on other things, like making sure they don't end up with excess heat. If you're familiar with Blades in the Dark, they've defended themselves from that, and also defended the different territories around and collected some resources instead of spending those resources to get stuff. So everyone's kind of at a different pace out in this map for different reasons. And as the turns have progressed, for example, the story that we're building gives people prompts to then go into the Discord server and start role-playing off of those events. So one huge recent event is that this place here, the Genesis Convention Center, which is a real place in Gary, by the way, is the main base of the Lucid. And all I said was that there is an occult event happening at the convention center, and it will give a certain amount of rewards. It was really quite high. It was like lots of XP, lots of money, I think. And everyone was very intent on completing that event. So 3 factions were involved. Obviously the Lucid, who owned the place, really wanted to get in there and solve that event and get the reward. And they decided that there was a Tzimisce in the basement that they needed to like capture or kill or do something about, because obviously that's bad when you're living there. They got help from the young Bravos. So they wrote this wonderful scene where the two of them met up, they like geared up, they talked about how they were going to get in there, what they were going to do when they were inside, and they burst into this room where they knew there was a Tzimisce there, and there was nothing. Because in the turn before, this other faction down here, the Magi of the Dark Mother, had actually beaten them in the initiative. Like this, I feel like there's all these things going around, like there's initiative and events, and I'm trying to simplify this as much as possible because I have written a 20-page document, which it'll be very easy to pass for people who have played Blades in the Dark and possibly impenetrable for anyone else. The Magi beat them in initiative, got to the event first, and completed it, taking the reward and spurring some interesting roleplay where suddenly this faction is really pissed off at this one. There's like possibly a war coming between these two that they will have to resolve somehow in roleplay, and also, you know, maybe in rules, giving up turf or money or doing some sort of trade. So in this way, I have tried my hardest to invent a system that provides everything people need to go away on their own and decide what their characters are up to in this city from, I guess, what is boiled down to current events, right? It's been so interesting having people play this game because up until that point it was just like pure theory and speculation. But obviously, like I've been saying a lot, I use Blades in the Dark, and in fact I wasn't looking to create something from scratch because I'm not that good a game designer, and there are people and things that fit the vibe, like this kind of interfaction combat and interfaction conflict that's simulated way better. Blades in the Dark already had some of this. So if you're playing a normal game, you exist in the city of Duskfall, and there are NPC factions of varying strengths, and you have relationships with them that can go positive and that can go really well for you. You get jobs, you get money, or they can go into negatives, and that can cause you problems. They'll get in your way, or they'll try and steal from you or kill you sometimes, depending on the severity of that. And I suppose I should explain the main difference, which is while each, you know, table of players gets one sheet that explains, you know, some bonuses, their safe house, whether they have transport, what kind of turf they own, and the various advantages it gets them. This map here, I kind of transliterated into something that multiple factions exist on. Each of them have their own character sheet that has no bearing on individual player characters, which in fact have absolutely no character sheet that is mandated by the game. Like, people have used VTM 5th edition to like build their own stuff, but that's only for like their use. There is absolutely no rolling outside of this once a month event. Built on top of the Blades in the Dark character sheet is actually each of these factions. They gain reputation, money, XP, and problems in the form of heat and wanted levels, and eventually they can get extra abilities and bonuses to their initiative or extra actions per turn, which people have savvily found out is extremely useful. And also they can work towards goals, huge long-term goals, like getting people to like them or taking over turf that is next to them. And all of that is recorded on character sheets. So this was already all there. I've tried to be as economical as possible while making these to try and translate from one to the other, where and build bits in between that make things fit. So the agency of a single tabletop player group is paramount over NPCs. But obviously, if there's a bunch of players in the Corpsemongers and a bunch of players in the Silk Gauntlet, their agency is equal and equally valid. So I had to put in initiative to kind of balance out, and that's rolled kind of like D&D to make sure that it's not necessarily fair because it's random, but it is it feels fairer to balance out the a little bit of luck in there, where one might want to do something and the other might want to do the same things at the same time, and stop them from, you know, arguing about who gets to do the same thing, which we saw when everyone was trying to fight a Tzimisce in the Genesis Convention Center. Don't really know what the conclusion to this video is. I think it might just be that I am incredibly proud of the work that I have done and the role players in the Discord. Making a game is so much different from playing a game. You have to consider what you intend to simulate. And one of the things I've been bumping up against with there is that the players are too darn nice. They all want to work together, and like some of them have been offering to you know, work together so that no one gets, you know, too much stuff or gets in anyone's way when they're trying to take over different turf. And an objective that I was trying to simulate was a conflict between factions and the kind of greediness and violence of street level vampire politics. But all the players are too nice, so I keep on having to say, no, you can't only take the good bits of this action and leave out the bits where someone else has to pay you money to do the thing. Or, you know, if you both want to take control of this place, that just can't happen. One of you has to get it over the other. Like, you don't have to be enemies about it, you don't have to hate each other, you can just have it be like a friendly competition, but it has to be conflict. It can't just be, oh, let's all hold hands. It's a very different role-playing game. That's there's games for that, but this ain't it. And the players have been amazing and understanding and really working to write cool stuff. It's given me a new appreciation of homebrewing things. This is the biggest homebrew project I've ever done, which means that it's still ongoing, because we're, like I say, 3 turns in, plenty more to go, plenty more of the map to cause problems on, and like, if you want to see all of this, it's free. I'm gonna, like, there's a Google Doc, there's this map, and the Discord that you can join, all for free. The actually role-playing in it is part of a Patreon thing, but like, looking at it, studying it, suggesting what you like, what you don't like, reading the roleplay that has occurred because of these actions. You can see videos of me playing out what each faction wanted to do. And I've been having an absolute blast doing all of those things. So this is really fulfilling for me, and I know that other roleplay homebrew GMs have the same feeling, and yeah, I think this means that I'm going to homebrew a lot more stuff in the future. And if I can do it, anybody can do it. So some of the stuff I didn't like about play-by-post games, where either there was no GM at all, or there was a GM and it required them to come in and play NPCs, or it required them to come in and give people storylines for each character or each group or each location. I feel like I have taken the format of play-by-post and made it my own, and that has made me really invested in something I didn't think was for me. There's always space for more opportunities to roleplay and give people, like, roleplay as an art, a medium, aesthetic. It's not done yet. We're not done yet because there's 5 editions of D&D and there's one more on the horizon. No, we are just beginning.